Welcome, fight fans, to episode 25, quarter century mark here of the Hooks In MMA podcast. Thank you for your support over the first 25. Make sure to subscribe, share this with your friends, any MMA fans that you know, send it their way, because we've got a legend on tonight's episode. We've got Dan, the Beast Severn. He's got over 100 professional wins. Dates back to UFC 4, UFC 5, Pride #1. He's got notable wins over Tank Abbott, Ken Shamrock, Forrest Griffin, and even the Hooks Eye alumni, Lee Meehan. And next, we're going to be getting right into the hot headline news, talking a bit about that punk, Jake Paul, and his antics, talking a bit about the new Bellator matchup between Yoel Romero and Anthony Rumble Johnson. And then, of course, breaking down that epic card from Saturday. We had a banger, and we've got lots of analysis to share with y'all. We're going to be looking ahead, getting ahead of that book with easy lines. We got a star-studded event coming up at the pay-per-view caliber. We've got 3 Hooks In alumni on this card. Alex Morono facing Anthony Pettis, Chito Vera facing Jose Aldo, and, of course, Marlon Moraes facing Rob Font. The headline is Wonderboy versus Jeff Neale, so make sure you tune in to Z-Ball's analysis. He's got some money picks for you. Kicking things off, hot headline news. Get it started, Zoni.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit going on in the news in the last week. Takes me a couple seconds once in a while when you get on a rampage like that. So well done, sir. Well done on your intro. So talking about the Paul brothers, like these guys are just going wild. You got Jake Paul sitting in, one of the nicest driveways with the nicest houses I've seen in the background, sitting on one of the nicest cars I've ever seen. And he's doing a pitch. He's doing a pitch to chirp Conor McGregor. He's doing a pitch to call out Dana White, and he's putting people on pedestals. He's getting the numbers. He's getting the clicks. He is getting us talking about him and his brother on here, and we're talking about it because this is just what's in the news. You know what? At first, I'm like, this guy's a punk bitch. His brother's a punk bitch. They're a bunch of losers, and I still kind of think they are. But at the same point, we're bringing them up on here because they're making waves, like I said. And he's calling out Dana White for losing money. He's calling him out for hanging out with the Nelk boys, which we'll talk about as well. And he's calling out Conor McGregor in his direct message Instagram pages, and he's calling him out to fight him. He's offering $50 million. He's offering these rules that they're going to have to follow if he's going to accept the fight. And he's laying it on the line. He's got the money to prove it, and he's got the mouth to back it up. And this guy's like a young Chael Sonnen here. And he's interesting. His brother's fighting Mayweather early 2021. And it looks like he's definitely going to get something next with the headlines he's been doing, driving by, throwing stuff at Dylan Dennis. There's something going on here where he's going to transpire that into a lot of money. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, what ends up, like you said, transpiring in terms of the matchup, right? There's so many things they could do. Sometimes I feel like they already know, and they're kind of trying to make storylines, or sometimes they're not really sure, right? And they're kind of playing the media and seeing what hits and what doesn't, right? So, but I've been very surprised by the Paul brothers' rise. I mean, in terms of the YouTube things like that, I mean, it definitely makes sense. But in terms of breaking out and like fighting the #1 boxer of, some argue of all time, but certainly of recent times, is a pretty big accomplishment. And again, like shows, just kind of what they're reaching for. We kind of spoke about last week a little bit, but there's a lot of matchups they could make here. And I don't know, like, what does Conor really like you said, Kronz, like is Dana White behind this? Is Conor McGregor behind this? Are they already setting something up here? What do you think?
Seems a little orchestrated to me. Dana addressing it in a statement. Like if it was totally random and out of the blue, Dana wouldn't said anything. But now he's fueling the fire by calling Amanda Nunes to go knock him out. And so just him acknowledging him, that gets a rise out of it, and it gets people to click, and it gets UFC in the headlines. He's brought on Milk Boys to Fight Island. He had him sit cage side with these, Saudi Arabian princes or whoever they are. Like, he, I think, understands now, Dana, the power of affiliate marketing, influencers, and younger generations like us. We go on these channels, and that's how we get our news. That's how we get our entertainment. And so I think UFC by nature is an old school establishment. You can tell this by going on the website. It's archaic. It's like super slow, not great to look at. And now they're trying to transition into the new digital era. It's no more, print or radio ads or TV ads. No, it's like Instagram, Snapchat, who knows what they're going to do next, right? TikTok accounts, for God knows why or what reason, but they're going to get clicks and they're going to engage new audiences. And I think this is a very brilliant scheme by whoever's behind it. I think Dana and, whatever comes of it is going to be successful. So kudos to them. I've been laughing, listening to these jokes. It's kind of like a reality Big Brother show or something, Ultimate Fighter almost. But it's, not on any schedule on any cable TV. It's on your phone. It's people at work are talking about it. So
accessible and
it's working.
Yeah, I think that these Paul brothers kind of proved with those few fights or whatever you want to call them, the box, like even the KSI one. I think one of them fought like another YouTuber, right? That big video game guy, right? The Nate Robinson one, right? And you're right, Krons. They're looking at these numbers and saying, "Wow, these kids are pushing the needle, like quite a noticeable amount." And it's with the younger generations, of course, which is what we want to get at, right? Because if you start at them 18, 19, 20, whatever, they're going to be UFC, MMA fans for life, hopefully, right? Or continuing on, right? So that's what they want to get at. It definitely makes sense. And those Paul brothers kind of prove with those numbers. And that's the reason why Mayweather, jumped on board. Obviously, Mayweather wouldn't just do that with anyone. And it seems silly on the outside, but on the inside, I think it makes them, perfect sense in terms of money on their end, right? So,
yeah, and you got Mayweather even saying he won't get out of bed for less than 200 mil. So, there's a lot of money on the line for this fight coming up for him. But yeah, the Logan Paul, when they did that first fight, his first fight with KSI, I think was just streamed live on YouTube. And then they saw how many people watch that live on YouTube, and they're like, let's rematch this thing and do it as a pay-per-view pro bout. Sold like crazy.
Yeah.
DAZN, I think it went on, and it was only like $8, but they still sold millions. So it just goes to show.
And then, yeah, exactly. And then you got to bring up those fucking USA West Coasters. You know who I'm talking about? The brothers.
Couple
the Diaz brothers. A brothers versus brothers boxing match would sell out, maybe the best of all time. Both Diaz brothers. Oh, yeah. Nick Diaz was supposed to come back in 2021 in MMA. Obviously, Nate's made his name the last few years. These Paul brothers are coming up out of nowhere and bashing out numbers like we've never seen before. You imagine having brothers versus brothers co-main and main event of a boxing match? Look what Tyson just did. Guy hasn't fought in 10, 15 years. And these guys, this is like exactly what you guys were saying, like the young generation, 15 years old to 30. Think of how many people are going to be like the millennial age, essentially. What are these people thinking? My God, brothers versus brothers boxing match, one era to another era. Bunch of guys that are YouTubers that have a couple of fights, bunch of biggest trash talkers, fucking slappers of the face, legends of MMA of lifetime matching up against each other. Man, I would throw $69.99 on that in a second, more than any of the pay-per-views in UFC the past year. That's for sure.
And then I tell you what about that.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, then you spice the pot, you put McGregor and the Diaz brothers. Like, how intriguing would that be?
Like Danis or something? Like three?
Yeah. Justin Bieber in the Paul brothers corner because he came out on the last fight with them. Like, it's just going to be, the who's who A-list.
Like you could do Tyson versus Holyfield on that card. You could do McGregor versus Danis or somebody like that.
Manny Pacquiao.
Pacquiao and McGregor could be on that.
That would be the most insane boxing card in the history of boxing.
Ever.
That would do 200 million pay-per-view buys. Everybody would buy that.
Everyone would argue who is the main event, right? Who gets the most money? And
that's the problem. Happen, right? Mayweather would have to be the main event. Yeah.
It. Then McGregor's there, and then who would he be fighting? No, that's a good idea. Well, that's what is coming. That's what I think is coming more. Even with this, the whole social media and TikTok Generation Z, whatever. I think this stuff we're going to see it a lot more because again, it makes them money. It's novelty over competition, right? This is what we're seeing now. We're no longer valuing the competition level. We're valuing the novelty of it, right? And that's kind of what's that's selling more than the competition. I don't think that's necessarily going to infiltrate UFC or something like that, right? That's something a little like they kind of try with CM Punk and things like that a little bit, but I think UFC wants to stick with this kind of we're a sport type of branding, which I think is good for everything. So, but boxing, it's in a little bit different situation. That's a very old sport, very old fashioned. So they've kind of gone the total opposite direction to get the younger kids and younger people talking about it again. Which, it's good.
Let me give you a 4-fight main card projection. Main event: Floyd Mayweather Jr. undefeated against Logan Paul. Co-main event: Conor McGregor, Jake Paul.
Forgot to add only defeated to Logan Paul. But...
Yeah. Co-main event: Jake
undefeated
Paul,
versus only defeated.
Conor McGregor. Third fight on there: Tyson and Holyfield. Fourth fight: Dylan Danis and who was I thinking? It was Ben Askren.
It worked.
There's your 4-fight main event boxing card.
Oh, that'd be the worst fight ever to lead off the main card. 2 guys that can't punch. Be unreal.
Well, talking about stacked cards, how about that hell of a banger from Saturday night? What do you guys think about that?
Top 5 UFC card ever.
Best card, best food, best company, because Josh wasn't there, and just an amazing time total.
Oh, hell of a card. What fight do you guys want to break down first? Do you want to start at the headliner, or do you want to talk about the undercard?
Talk about Gavin Tucker and Billy Q.
Perfect.
Fantastic fight.
Yeah,
he looked unbelievable. Tucker looked unbelievable. He looked like he could move up and take a top 6 to 10 fight after that.
He seriously mixed it up. Like when I rewatched that fight on Sunday, honestly, like the thing I thought most, and if anybody that watches fights like we do, it's seriously investing in what they're doing. Like he literally did every single thing a mixed martial artist could do in a fight in 15 minutes. He stood up. He switched stances. He used the jab. He had hooks. He had power straight rights. He had kicks. He took him down. He controlled him on the ground. He let him back up. He had cage control. He dirty boxed. He was fantastic. Like everywhere. He looked fantastic. He actually said in an interview, and he doesn't take a lot of interviews, that his next match, he really wants to fight Alex Caceres. Alex Caceres gives him a new opportunity. He likes fighting somebody that he's never fought before, like that style. Alex Caceres has been around forever. I think he only has I'm just making this up, like a 10-8 record, but he has been in the UFC that long. He has like 15, 20 UFC fights, and he brings a lot of length and awkwardness, and he wants to fight a guy like that next, which is a great fight. They're both on 3-fight win streaks. The next fight, it's whoever wins that one. I think they definitely get a top 10, like Josh was saying. So I'd like to see that fight because he likes to pursue new challenges. And I thought that fight with Billy Q was awesome.
Yeah, really showcased.
And I think really the most surprising kind of performance or thing that happened was Charles Oliveira's domination of Tony Ferguson. I didn't see it coming. I mean, certainly easy lines. We took the money line, and it was a little bit scary. We weren't quite sure of it, but we took Oliveira money line, and we ended up working out. But I was not expecting that type of domination. I think it kind of showed, Ferguson. Is he on his way out? I wouldn't say no necessarily, but he can't really hang with that top 5, almost top 10 now. I think at this point, his strength was always his kind of cardio and his kind of ability to improvise, let's say. But once you kind of start going against the top 3 guys, every top 5 guy, every fight, like he has been the last couple of fights, it doesn't really work, but it's just, you can't really get those guys. Like, you can't out tough those guys because they're too good. And but it should be interesting in terms of Oliveira's kind of next matchup, who kind of he takes on. But for me, that was kind of the most surprising performance.
Can I ask you guys a question quick?
Yeah.
I know
that's
Ferguson,
that's what we're here for.
I know Ferguson just came off a loss, but I think Kronz or someone else was saying Dan Hooker just signed a fight. What are the chances that fight's against Tony Ferguson?
What are the odds?
I don't know. I don't think his arm's ready to go, man.
That doesn't mean it's not. It doesn't mean it's not 2 or 3 months away. I'm just
it could be April or something, right? But does that make sense though? I think
it makes sense.
It makes sense for Hooker because even though Tony's coming off a loss, he's such a big name.
True.
So Hooker would take that.
Gatekeeper.
But 2 domination losses, man. He got dominated twice.
The only fight I see him taking in the lightweight division, I'm looking at the rankings right now, is RDA. That's the only other one that makes sense to me. He's the only one
for Hooker or Tony?
For Hooker.
Right.
Michael Chandler.
Or Michael Chandler, but I still think he's fighting Gaethje on the McGregor card. And if he's not, then he's fighting Hooker.
I think it is Chandler. Hooker. I think it is because they would have announced who he's fighting.
If it's Chandler, then it's on the McGregor card. Chandler and Hooker. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Chandler and Gaethje, you think?
That's what I thought, but I wouldn't be surprised with Chandler and Hooker.
I think they would have announced it if it was Gaethje.
It's one of the two. It's one of the two.
Yeah. So I'm sure we'll find in the next week before next episode 26 who it'll be. So we'll circle back on that one for the fans. But
and just sorry to throw it out there, an underrated fight I saw being booked was Islam Makhachev and Drew Dober. I think that's going to be a fantastic fight, both on big win streaks. Makhachev's been unreal, and Dober's won 3 in a row, finishing, I think, all 3. Yeah. That'll be a good lightweight test within the top 15.
Yeah. You know what else was crazy from that card? Fizayev's knockout. That was crazy. He destroyed Moicano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Murdered him.
And then people were talking about Moicano is good, and they were talking about how the fact that it could have been an early stoppage. No, if you look back and you veer in on what Moicano looked like when he was trying to get up and stand up and sit down,
he
absolutely
fell into the fence.
Yeah, Rogan was talking about that a bit on the card.
Fiziev looked great, and he is going to be something. He's going to be something.
You can't have a guy's head bounce off the canvas because he's out so bad and say it was an early stoppage.
Yeah, no, I know. I agree.
That's crazy.
He wasn't close anyways.
That 145 division is just crazy as well.
Yeah, Killer. Cub Swanson murdering.
Unreal.
Pineda,
unreal.
Out of nowhere too, because Pineda was he just showed zero respect for Cub Swanson.
Yeah, hands down.
Warming him early, hands down, pushing forward, bullying him.
Way too aggressive.
What do you guys feel about this? If Gavin Tucker does sign against Kacharis and beats him and Cub Swanson, how do you feel about that fight?
Love it.
That'd be a pretty good fight, I think.
I think he crushes Kacharis. I was just looking at his record, and I remember him from the GSP Ultimate Fighter, and Tucker would fold him in half.
I think so too. He's a better this is what I felt about Billy Q. He's a better mixed martial artist everywhere. And I think he does too, but I think Cub Swanson and him would be a fantastic fight. I really do.
Yeah. The action pack.
Maybe he skips Kacharis and the UFC calls him and said, "Do you want to fight Cub?"
Like I think he skips Kacharis, honestly.
Yeah.
I would.
At this point,
I don't see how that fight does anything for his stock.
That's right. Because if he loses, it's a huge setback. And if he wins, it's like a very slight improvement.
Exactly.
So for me, two of the best featherweights in Canada, if Gavin Tucker fights Cub Swanson and Hakeem Dawodu fights Shane Burgos, we're, as Canadians, we're looking up in the right direction here. We got some big fights coming up. That's what it is.
Love it.
Easy lines.
Kevin Holland.
Oh, sorry.
We'll move on then.
No, Holland, quick.
Holland,
we got to talk about Holland.
Kevin Holland, first knockout I've ever seen like that.
Bottom game rated 99 out of 100 on UFC. Like once they put him in, he's not even in UFC yet. They're like the game, Like
the game.
Yeah. Like UFC.
A lot of those new guys.
Holland's unreal.
Yeah. And actually, funny enough, Jeff Neale, his only his one loss or whatever is against Kevin Holland. They fought each other in a regional show in Texas, which is random. But
if you think about a couple of studs that are in the media right now, he beat Jeff Neale, who's main eventing this weekend. He beat Joaquin Buckley, who has the knockout of the year. Those are two wins that people aren't talking about. But then Holland has wins over, Ronaldo Souza, Jacare, and a few other guys here. This is, he just said he wants to be like an Adesanya or a Jones. He's like, Jones is getting old. Someone's got to take over for him. Somebody with some swagger, somebody that chirps, somebody has a skill to back it up. Man, 5 wins in 2020 and he wants to fight 6 times in 2021. This guy is he's making us want to love him. He's got everything.
Who gets taken down by Jacare and starts throwing up triangles and arm bars on Jacare? That's insane.
And almost finished it. Finished it. It was unbelievable.
Most guys, the second Jacare gets them down, they panic, and then Jacare catches them in something.
And he had Jacare freezing.
Panicking.
Yeah. Jacare was freezing, and that's when the finish actually happened. He wasn't sure what's going on, and fucking Holland pops him a few times in the head, stuns him, and just fucking annihilates him. He was fantastic.
Jacare couldn't get up off his stool for 4 minutes after that. That was crazy.
No, the commentators were saying 2 minutes later, they're like, oh my God, he passed out again. He actually got knocked out again. He wasn't even touched for 2 minutes. He was fucked.
Yeah. And you think of the size difference of those two on fight night too. You got Jacare's got to be pushing 205, 210 on fight night.
Yeah, he said that.
Holland's
and then he also
195.
He also said him and Brunson got a back and forth. They're chirping, which would be a great fight. Brunson obviously has that win over Shabazian, undefeated. And then he was saying pretty much locked in was Vettori and they say Darren Till. Fantastic fight. I mean, that's a little semifinal right there. If I've ever seen one, Till and Vettori would be. Oh, that's great. There's fantastic.
So many good fights coming up. There's so many great, just younger fighters. I think we're running into a great time for MMA. I think we're seeing even with guys signing with Bellator, right? I think we're going to see some of the talent start to spread out a little bit. Look at UFC. They can't, even the UFC, they can't hold 1,000 guys on their roster at all times, right? So it's they can only hold a certain amount of guys on their roster, on their payroll. These guys are going to start spreading out more and more to Bellator, to PFL, or wherever, and it just means more fights and better, even better fights, better competition, right? So I think in 2021 we're going to see a lot of good events. I think with UFC last kind of 6 months they've had to run an event every single weekend. I think with this little break, it's going to kind of add up all the talent into a smaller amount of time type of thing, and we're going to see a lot of great shows, stacked cards. January, February, and March. So
you know what I'm thinking the catalyst for this whole movement is Dana White Contender Series. Almost every single one of these up and coming fighters that everybody's talking about, all of them are from Contender Series.
Yep.
There's
So
a
just
high
catalyst
percentage
caused
for
this
sure.
explosion of exciting fighter.
And the
It's
other
a good way to farm. It's a good way to to get people behind them, right? Like to get like the general public to showcase them, see who's good, see who gets kind of the viral knockout or not, right? And then they can grow them from there. It's kind of a cheap, quicker way than the Ultimate Fighter reality series, right? Where you have to do a whole season and get 2 coaches and blah blah blah, right? So I think that's an excellent point where that's a good way for them to be farming talent.
Yeah, to add to what you guys were saying, sorry, quick. Some of the Contender Series Tuesday nights, you saw a guy or a girl 2 to 3 weeks later stepping in on short notice because they were signed. It makes it easier for visas and for, being checked and quarantines and all that stuff. COVID tests. You saw many people stepping on 2 or 3, and they won in the UFC. They made it look really easy because they were like fresh. They came off a win. They got the momentum. They came off a high of going into a Contender Series fight, winning right in front of Dana and Mick Maynard, the guy that makes the fights. And I thought it was fantastic because it's like, I love riding momentum. Like if you're going, you're going. So you win 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm going to step in on 3 weeks notice. I'm in fresh, healthy shape. I'm going to step in, beat this guy. And it happened a lot of times. So.
And just, to add to Seaball's point, like if you compare it versus Ultimate Fighter's once a week, you get 1 fight as a viewer. With Dana White's Contender Series, you get a whole card of fights in 1 week. None of this bullshit, guys in the kitchen spitting at each other, whatever. You're just seeing fights. And as a fight fan, that's what I want to see. If I want to go watch reality, I'll go watch Big Brother or all these other Amazing Race, whatever it is. So,
don't got to pay 2 coaches $500,000 a piece for the whole season.
And it's just a charade. It's all these, set up, rigged interactions. Like, cut out all that bullshit.
Just let me bang, bro. Just let me bang.
Like, there are some kind of funny parts in that, but like, I just want to see knockouts, submissions. And that's a great venue for that. Before we head into easy lines, just a hot take on the Bellator news. I want to hear your guys' predictions on who wins, Yoel Romero or Anthony Rumble Johnson in this upcoming Bellator card, if it happens, of course.
Fuck, man. 85% chance it happens. I'm so glad you brought it up. Rumble Johnson, fuck, one of my favorite fighters of all time. Yoel Romero, getting stiffed out of the UFC. That's really, really sad. And then you hear this news that they could be facing each other. Really good chance. Honestly, man, thinking about it and looking at old fights, the length and the strength, I don't even care about the time out of the ring rust. I think Rumble Johnson wins this. It already shows he's a big underdog. This guy's a murderer. He either gets submitted by some of the best of all time, like Daniel Cormier, or he murders you and knocks you out. I think it could be a 3-round fight. I think it might end in a decision, but I think his length and just what he brings coming forward, I think it outweighs Yoel Romero. I got AJ in a 3-round decision.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you guys hear why, though? It's coming out more of why Romero was cut. So he was demanding, he turned down multiple fights because the only thing he wanted was a title fight, basically. Off of a 1-4 record or whatever he's got in his last 4. Like, you're just being unreasonable and not accepting, turning down all these other fights.
Which is weird because, it's weird because he has taken every other big fight. You know what I mean?
So what does that tell me, though? Logically, he's too old to go and climb the ladder again. He just wants that direct shot. He knows he doesn't have enough in the tank. That's what that tells me.
He said his other fight he would have taken was the winner between Thiago Santos and Glover Teixeira. So he wants to fight Glover.
Which would have been a good fight. Shot. That would have been a good fight. I don't care what anybody says. Him and Glover that would have been actually a dream matchup if you ask me now.
But Glover would never accept that.
Why?
He's got a number 1 contender spot. You're going to fight a middleweight that's 1-3. 3 in his last 4. Lot to lose there, nothing to gain. If he wins, he's still only the number 1 contender.
Depending on the money, like if you said to UFC, like, so will I get $750K on that? And they're like, no. And he's like, will I get a 1.5 million on a fight with Adesanya? And they're like, yeah, well, obviously he's going to take the Adesanya one. You know what I mean? Like, they got to figure out the money. Like, if it makes it worth it, then yes, you could.
Well, Glover will just lose and sign with Bellator, and then they'll fight there. So
I could see Glover right now. I could see Glover. He's like the prototypical fucking Bellator fighter. So I could see him going there.
Yeah.
So we got to slide into easy lines. We got about 7 minutes left. Z-balls. I know you've been doing a ton of research. What's your gut telling you here for this Saturday?
Well, yeah, just quickly, last weekend, easy lines, with 7 wins and 5 losses. A bit of a tough weekend with our lock pick losing for only the second time this year, currently 10-2 overall with the locks, but looking to pick it back up this weekend, and shoot for an even higher winning percentage. Currently, overall, we're sitting at 85 wins, 49 losses, with a 63.4% win rate going into this weekend. Main event's an amazing matchup, welterweight division fight between Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Jeff Neale. Currently, odds makers have it as a perfect pick'em fight. Both are -110s, and for good reason. This is an extremely tough fight to call. I won't be laying very much on this fight, as I will be on the co-main event. We'll be talking about it in a moment here, but Neale clearly has never fought anyone as developed or as technical as the striking that Wonderboy has at this point. He's on another level, though Neale has shown to be much better himself than any of the UFC competition he's gone up against, which is why this line is so close at this point. But I'm going to go with Jeff Neale here. I'm going with the young and uppercomer in this division. Wonderboy broke both of his hands in the last fight against Vincent Luque. He's 37 years old now. I think Neale's technique combined with his advantage in power, speed, overall athleticism, we were able to get around Wonderboy's top-notch Taekwondo style. This is also in the Apex Center. It's a very important point. Apex Center, smaller octagon. I do not believe Wonderboy will be able to move around as much. He's not going to be able to bounce around, create that distance that he usually does with the kicks, and create that long distance, right? Last time Wonderboy fought was end of 2019 in Madison Square Gardens. He has never fought in this small octagon before. This is why it's pushing me towards the Neale side. I'm also leaning on the under as well. I think their striking will match up well and within the smaller octagon, lead to some excellent exchanges and some great action. I don't believe either fighter kind of lasts, the full 5 rounds here. So under 3.5, -125 looks nice to me. Not to go to distance, -163. You have to throw in some parlays there. But what are you guys thinking for this one?
Honestly, man, like, I've been waiting all week to just listen to your voice, and the way that you sounded there, honestly, it's going to cuddle me into a corner and make me fall asleep. It's going to make me fall asleep because you sound so good when you talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
I am riding on everything you're talking about. I have went back and forth all week on this. I absolutely love Jeff Neale. Wonderboy, what has he done in the sport? He's done a lot of shit. But when I go back and forth and when I look at lines, I look at what have they done and what has a guy done to bring himself into this kind of fight. And when I look at the line being even, I get really fucked up because I'm like, Wonderboy should easily be the favorite based on what he's done. Jeff Neale is on par because what he's going to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with you. I seriously think the line tells me Jeff Neale is going to win this fight because he's somebody that actually should be an underdog, but he's actually on par. It's really weird to me. Like Stephen Thompson, what he's done, I would have thought he'd be 150, 175 favorite. And when that happens at the time of their career, it's like, yeah, Wonderboy, I probably take a money line mixed with something. They're actually even money. I'm taking Jeff Neale all day just because of that and because of what you said. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think all the sharps, kind of like you said, all the sharp guys have jumped on Jeff Neale already, and that's what's pushing that line, because most of the casual fans do know Wonderboy. He's known fairly well, even within casual MMA fans. So, yeah, that's what I think is kind of keeping that line close there. Josh or Kronz, want to add anything onto that, though?
No, I was thinking Wonderboy prior to that. All that stuff you guys brought up, and you guys swayed me. I'm on Jeff Neale, and it's been over a year. It's been over a year since Wonderboy fought. That's a long time when you're hitting that high 30s age range.
I don't think any of that information changes it. It's Z-Ball's voice that just coaxes you in.
It lulls you to sleep and tells you and whispers sweet bets into your ear. So.
Just hypnotizing everybody. I'll bet on Jeff Neale. Yes.
Yeah.
We got 2 minutes left, boys. So we're going to have to do our 2-minute warning. Rapid fire.
Yeah. I'll just go ahead. Lock of the week, guys. Number 1 is Jose Aldo to win, -150. He's being undervalued here. I think, he's gone against very tough people. And he's just mainly just being undervalued. Marlon Vera being overvalued. Beat Sean O'Malley, who himself was just on a major hype train, I think. So it's Marlon Vera is a little bit too, overvalued there. Other than that, I'm also jumping on Marlon Moraes money line, -150. I think is excellent as well as the Michael Pereira Chaos Williams over 1.5, -138. I think is a great pick as well. But yeah, Zone, what do you think about some of those ones? Or yes, also we're on Tybura +100, right? That's what you like, Zone.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to jump with you, Z. I like everything you just said. I'm going to give a 4-fight parlay. Okay? You can put on 15, 20 units on this. 4-fight parlay. Number 1. Jillian Robertson, fellow Canadian. I think the hype train stops. She's a one-trick pony. She only likes to grab, wrestle, grind you down. Take Talia Santos, -110. Jose Aldo. Z-Ball hype train. Absolutely. Way better. He's fought way more people. Marcin Tybura. Greg Hardy has not fought anybody like this. And my last one. Marlon Moraes over Rob Font. 4 money lines.
That's plus 960.
Yeah.
That's a huge payout.
Suck me sideways. That's a payout. Next up on the Hooks In MMA podcast, we're extremely excited to have a special guest today. Many fans would know him from a lot of different things. He's got over 100 MMA fights. He's a professional wrestler. He's done a ton of things in his life, and he's going to explain a few more things to us today. Dan the Beast Severn, how's it going today?
Matthew, I'm living the dream, as they say. I'm living the dream. A little bit cold here in Michigan. I think it's like all of like 32, 33 degrees Fahrenheit. For our international viewers, I don't know what that converts to. I think that's right around 0 Celsius. Yeah, that's what it would be.
Yeah, so we're a few hours away, just on the other side of the border, and it's going to get cold tonight too. So I know how you're feeling there. So you grew up in Michigan. Was it Coldwater or was it Flint?
No. I'm born. I am born and raised in the state of Michigan. A lot of people think I was born and raised in Coldwater, but that's only because each time I filled out the forms to compete in the Ultimate Fighting Championships, they're like, well, where do you live? Coldwater, Michigan. Well, I've lived in Coldwater since basically 1992. So 2 years before the cage fighting world began, and then of course that was the very first company, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I born and raised Michigan, but I lived for a decade out in Arizona. I went to college at Arizona State University. Lived out there for 10 years, 5 years as a student athlete, 5 years as a wrestling coach, then at Arizona State, before taking a job at Michigan State University. So that's what brought me back to my home state of Michigan, and been basically here ever since. First getting involved in the wacky world of professional wrestling as of the 1992 Olympics, and then 1994 jumping into a cage. And then I guess My life has been upside down ever since, well, basically since 92, but it even got crazy yet by 94 when I'm having a dual career. I'm doing MMA this, I'm doing professional wrestling that, and being non-exclusive to anybody. So think about that. That was a different era where now athletes, when they sign with the UFC, they can't leave and go compete for anybody else because UFC's got them by the proverbial balls.
And we're definitely going to talk about that in a few minutes. I was curious on some of the hobbies you had growing up in Michigan. What were some of the things you like to do?
Well, let's see. I grew up on a farm. So hobbies. So I think, what hobbies did I really do? I don't think there were really truly hobbies. I mean, it was like a Tom Sawyer type of childhood. I mean, it was you couldn't ask for a better upbringing in the sense that grew up on a 120-acre farm. So it was a combination of 80 tillable acres and 40 basically acres that was woods and forestry and creeks and rivers. And so fishing and hunting, building forts and tree houses and rope swings across the rivers. I mean, it was a great childhood. I had, I should say, I still have 7 siblings. I'm actually son number 2 on the totem pole. I have 4 brothers and I have 3 sisters. So it was a big family. You learn to share real quick, and you learn that you learn responsibilities at a very young age. As I always put it, I changed diapers on my 3 youngest siblings. Now, even though that they're well into their 40s and up now, I mean it's just hard to believe that babysitters. There were no babysitters at that point in time. You took care of stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up fishing and hunting. I do that myself. So what kind of fish did you fish for, and what did you hunt for?
You name it. First, I would say that growing up on a farm, I did not know you needed a license because you're on your own farm, you're on your land. So basically, being self-proficient. So, I mean, when it came to fishing, I'd say in the springtime, that's when a lot of the northern pike would be run. So the northern pike would be running, suckers would be running, but then we would fish for other stuff, catfish, things of that nature, carp. But it was, and you'd be surprised some of the big fish that we pull out. I mean, there's some nice size pike, northern pike that we pull out in the spring. But then hunting like deer and fox, squirrels, rabbits, but none of it was for sport. Anything that you killed, you're going to be eaten. So, and growing up on a farm, I mean, you name the animals: chickens, pigs, ducks, geese, cattle, hogs. We raised it all, and you learned real quick. You did not give it pet names. Sooner or later, it was going to end up on your plate.
Yeah.
But I mean, but it was a great a great way to work to grow up. I mean, because it was in the morning. Again, I think that's where a lot of it still carries over to me to this day. That like in the morning, you had to get up and you had to take care of the animals before you got taken care of, and you have to do that, and then you still have to walk basically 3/4 of a mile up to the corner to catch the school bus in the morning. So you had timetables and you had responsibilities, and as my father used to put it, son, do you like to eat? And I go, yes. I go, so do the animals, twice a day, in the morning and when you get home. Do you like to drink? So do the animals, twice a day, in the morning when you get up and when you get home. Getting up was the easy part. That was always about the same time. The getting home, that was a whole different era right there, because if it was just a normal day after school, sure, but there was no normal day after school. It would be in the fall, it was football practice. In the winter, it was wrestling practice. In the spring and summer, it was track and field practice. So it was always later in the evening. But if you should have an away meet, a game or something of nature, it might be 11, 12 o'clock at night that you're finally milking Peggy the milk cow, feeding the chickens, the pigs, the rabbits, the ducks, the geese, and so on. So, yes, twice a day, no matter what time that is.
Yeah, a lot of responsibilities, and maybe what was to come for you for your career, being busy, like we talked about earlier. How did your wrestling career start? And how did you transition that into MMA?
Well, I'd say I started back in 7th grade in the just through the physical education department. 7th grade is the first year in what we in the States what we refer to as the junior high years, that they actually offer physical education class. And so I just learning sports through physical education. Again, football time, they would be showing us American football. They'd be showing us soccer. There'd be some cross country type of things that we'd be doing. And then as it got colder, the winter sports. So now we would be doing basketball, wrestling, and then just all types of dodgeball and things of that nature. Stuff that students don't do anymore to this day because too physical, too violent. We really, Matthew, again, I'm going to say some things that some people may or may not like, but again, I just say, but I don't care. It's just my 2 cents worth. We have really, we have lowered our standards. We continue to do so many things that I call it the pussification of the world. Is really what it's becoming. We allow, this is too mean, this is too brutal. I can't have my kid do this. I can't do that. To the point that if you were to go into America's school systems now, you will see 25 to 30% of the students don't even dress out for physical education anymore. It means they don't participate, and yet they pass. I don't know why they allow them to pass. I wouldn't pass. I'd flunk them, but that's me. But because I have standards, that's why I like what I do, because sure, I have a teaching degree from Arizona State University. I still do substitute teaching. I'm actually the #1 sub, whether I'm in Michigan or Arizona in my area, because they know that, the principals and everyone else know Dan Severn doesn't take no bullshit from nobody, including the principal and the teachers, because I don't think they know what they're doing, most of them. And if they ask me, I'll let them know that they don't know what they're doing. Otherwise, I'll go in and I'll take care of that class, no problem. And it's because we just live in a weird world where we continue to lower our standards to pretty soon, why don't we just throw the bar on the ground and just step on it? But I always tell people that I have my own training facility here in Coldwater, Michigan. I have standards. I always say that the front door that welcomes you in also allows you to leave if you can't meet my standards, my rules. Yes, I do. I have rules and regulations, and I have asked parents to take their child and to leave, and they all want to come back because they know that where else are they going to get? Are they going to learn discipline and manners and things of that nature? The martial arts, I would say, the martial arts is the last frontier where any children really hope to learn things, because they're not learning it. They're not learning it in their parents' home. I couldn't even tell you. Currently, of any of the current young fathers I know, have they ever given their child the proverbial swat on the behind? Not doing it in an angry manner that they're beating them, but to me, it's called follow through. Your word should mean something. I was always, when we raised my own children, I had the theory of threes. I will ask you, and now I come down upon you. You had 3 strikes, you're out. There's got to be repercussions. But if you just simply say warning, 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 the criminals will just look at, you have to have follow through. And then that's a problem we have in a lot of things in the United States. Just a lot of problems because people have no follow through. Their words mean nothing.
Yeah, I like the way you put all that. Just quickly, I'll add in, I had a father that kind of had this, he still has the same mindset, and it's made me a better person, and it's made me appreciate, and it's made me, as a father, kind of have the same approach. It's an approach that is going away, and our society has become more soft. And in the school systems, like you said, like I did a phys ed degree as well. And in phys ed, it's probably the same percentages that you say in the States that it is up here. That
really,
25, 30% probably don't participate or don't dress phys ed.
Well,
And
see,
it's,
because I always say that I think the United States is a lot more lenient than a lot of other countries are much more healthier than what the United States is because they walk a lot more. Heck, we drive everywhere. I swear, if somehow they could put wheels on your hind end, I think some people would actually have wheels put on their hind end because they're just that lazy. But again, I would say that we're a great country to live in. And we're number one in a lot of ways, including obesity, because we have so many fat people. We like to supersize everything. And, you don't have just there's a big transition. Like if you go to Japan, they'll bring out like a glass of something, but that glass of something is like an 8-ounce glass. And then all of a sudden you go to the States and you get this 72-ounce container that's like a small swimming pool that's full of soda and stuff like that. And I know, like the first time I had some more Japanese friends, they come there, they're like looking at it, they're like going, "Oh, Godzilla drink" and stuff like this. I mean, it's comical the way that they look at this, but it's true. They're so used to, they're so proficient. Many other countries are much more proficient, and we are a country of a great deal of waste. I say that like that, but again, not Dan Severn. Because I grew up on a farm, so you did not waste things. As a matter of fact, before the term repurpose I ever heard of repurpose, that's more modern term that they repurpose, reclaim wood, things of this nature, they repurpose all this kind of stuff. We simply knew that we had to make that old piece of machinery work again and again and again. You have to weld it, you got to fix it together because we can't afford to buy something brand new. You just you fix it. You keep on going on.
yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
That's my mentality.
Yeah. Well, it's not a bad one. It's pretty spot on. I just want to talk about your acting career quickly. So you've done, a lot of different shows and movies. So just, what was your favorite experience about acting and what did you like most about it, basically?
Well, I'm hoping that I'm actually at the cusp of it. I've sought out a couple individuals relatively recently to say, bring something to me. I go because it's what is professional wrestling? Professional wrestling, you are taking on a role, whether that's a good guy, the baby face, bad guy, the heel. I even used as in the psychological aspect. I used some of the things I learned in the world of the wacky world of professional wrestling, and I used them in my cage fighting career, to where I knew how to manipulate the audience, knowing that I tell my story, but if I tell my story as a professional wrestler, I only have 3 ingredients. Those 3 ingredients are my facial expressions, my audio, and my body language, knowing that unless they give you a microphone, they're never going to hear you. So the 2 only ingredients I had was facial expression and body language. And that speaks volumes. Also, learning through my younger my career, the psychological aspect of competition warfare. The tool of the mind, how to psych your opponent out in so many different ways. I mean, just because in the beginning of a wrestling match, they always want you to shake hands or something like this at the match, and a lot of times, your opponent will be grabbing your hand, trying to give you that little muscle handshake, like they're really a powerful individual. And I just basically look up at them, and I just kind of just a little bit of a grin as I look at them, but I'm not looking at their face. I'm looking at their ears. Because the more damaged the ear is on that side of the head, I know exactly which leg he's going to be trying to attack. Ironically, I've had to teach this to so many wrestlers and actually to coaches. They never even knew this. I go, you got to be kidding me. I go, if I know your right ear is damaged goods, I know you're attacking, you're going to be coming after my right leg. You're going to be shooting across because you're going to be driving your head into me. That's the way that they teach principles of leverage inside of wrestling. I go, oh, it's easy because unless you wore headgear, you don't know. And yours truly does not have damaged ears, so I always wore headgear during practice. The only time I didn't wear headgear was when it was not allowed. Because I knew that my career would eventually end. Eventually, I say that kind of ironically because has it really ended yet? Some people think, well, I tell people right now that probably the MMA career has ended. If I was going to do something in it, the problem I have with MMA, or I should say the problem that the promoters would have with MMA, is that just because of my age, I would have to jump to a whole lot more hoops. And I did that for what was supposed to be my last hurrah match here with Ken Shamrock. I jumped through all these hoops because they had to put me on CAT scans, EKG, a few other things. Even the athletic commission, where in the state that was going to take place, they did a background check to see if I was in financial despair and a few other things. I mean, I compliment them for their due diligence. And at the same token, when they found out that everything came back, he's of sound body, sound mind. He doesn't need the money. It was like, well, why? I go, well, I'm not asking to go against another. I'm not asking to go against a young buck, someone who's 30 years younger than me. I'm asking to go against another old fart. I go, and the bad part is, will this matchup ever live up to its hype? No. It's going to be still just two old farts going out there, and will never live up to the hype. But the thing that I want to put into it, I go, but I want mandatory drug testing the night of competition, because Dan Severn prides himself in the fact that I am lifetime chemical free, and I can't say that about a lot of my opponents.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Ken Shamrock. You were supposed to have that match, and they talk about injuries and stuff like that, but there maybe was a bit more to that.
Now there's again, it's Ken and I, we've had a chance to talk. We spent 10 days in a trip in Australia at one point in time, and I'll say we got a chance to know each other a little bit better. Will I be sending him a Christmas card anytime soon? No. I'll still stand on my beliefs, and he'll stand on his, and one of us is right and one of us is wrong. So I can't help it if Ken's wrong.
I like that.
Well, I mean, Matthew, the one thing that you really like or dislike is I call it as I see it. I have no future politics, because I'm going to hit you right between the eyes with the truth. You may not like the truth. As I always say, the farm boy analogy is this: I will grab you by the scruff of the head and shove you down into the cow pie of reality. It doesn't smell so good sometimes.
No, definitely not. December 16th, 1994, UFC 4. You had 3 fights that night. Just talk about that experience, and being in the UFC and getting that being, like I said, being a pioneer and just creating a bunch of years ahead of success and growth in the sport and all that stuff.
Well, to set the stage for your, I don't know if this is being viewed or be listened to by your audience there, but it's I did not tell a single family member, Matthew. I was already involved in the wacky world of professional wrestling, and I didn't want no one to get nervous. I go, because I'm a big boy at that time. I mean, here was I was closer to 37 than I was to 36. So I always just tell people I basically started my cage fight career at 37, and you don't start a cage fight career at 37. You retire from that industry. But I always tell people that I went basically 20 years beyond that. My last match ended at around 58 years of age. I did not tell a single family member, and ironically, my father found out about it the night of UFC number 4. I had 2 uncles that happened to stumble onto this Ultimate Fighting Championships, and when they saw my name flash up there, one of my uncles calls my father, and my father, who never answers the telephone, happens to answer the home phone that night. And my uncles are like, my father's name was Marvin, and my uncle's like, Marvin, do you know where your boy's at? First off, my dad's got to say which one, because I got 4 other brothers. And my uncle's like, well, Danny. And then like, isn't he down in Coldwater? And my uncle's like, no, he's about to climb in this cage. He's in this no holds barred type contest. And my dad's like, what the hell? And after each match, my uncles are calling back, okay, he won, he's okay. Okay, he lost, but he's still okay. Well, my weekend comes to an end. I head back home, and when I got home, I had a message to call your father. So when I called my father to say what's up, my father basically was bitching me out for making him nervous. So it just goes to show you, it doesn't matter how old you are, you will still be daddy's little boy or mama's little boy, and your parents are going to worry about you till the day they die. So it was basically very much a term of endearment. And I mean, I still, even to that point on, I never told any of my family members whenever I had any matches, because I know that if something's going bad, I'm not going to risk such damage to myself that it's going to inhibit me for the rest of my life. So I always look at this as a competition. It was never a fight. I've never been in a fight in my entire life. But I've been a competitor my entire life. And I always tell people that's a scarier cat. Even Big John McCarthy has. I've gotten to know him quite well over the years, and he's even said in his own words, he said, "There's nobody else like you, Dan Severn." He goes, "The way that you use your mind," he goes, "and the way that you can carry on a conversation, even while you're fighting somebody else." I mean, I pulled off one-liners with Big John throughout so many different matches that he just doesn't know how I could keep focused on a competitor and yet carry on, hit him with a little tidbit of a funny remark here or there. And I don't know how. Okay, we just lost for a moment, but I mean, I'll give you an example. The very first time I ever met Big John was UFC number 4, and he comes, and as he comes over to you, he talks to you, the fighter, first, and he's very very authoritative the way he speaks to you. He goes, "If you're in trouble," he says, "I might look for you for a response." He goes, "If you can't give me some kind, I like a nod or a wink, or a thumbs up." He says, "I'm gonna stop the match," and so it basically goes through his little shtick, and then when he gets to the end of his shtick with you, he goes, "Are there any questions?" And then he turns from you to your corner person that speaks to your corner person. So it's the first time I'm going through this. He goes to a whole shtick. He hits with the one line. "Are there any questions?" I can't think of anything. And as he's turning away to talk to my corner person, a goofy little thought pops in my head. And I simply just said it out loud. I simply said, "Where did all that money go that my parents paid for piano lessons?" He said he heard it. But when he turned back to look at me, he figured it couldn't come from me because I had my game face on. Okay? Because again, in competition, I understand what the opponents are looking for, and because I've had a very extensive amateur wrestling career domestically, but my international career with freestyle Greco-Roman suited me so much better for the cage fighting world. Again, I don't use the terms MMA because it wasn't MMA at that time, which stands for mixed martial arts. It was NHB, which stood for no holds barred. The only 2 rules were no biting, no eye gouging, no weight classes, no time periods. You just had 1 round, and that round was basically until somebody was rendered unconscious, whether that was a knockout, chokeout. Even in the beginning, the referee could not stop the matches, but a ring physician outside the ring could have stopped the match. And that was basically about it. It wasn't until, like, I think UFC number 3, where Big John was able to get the rule, in fact, that the referee could stop because he's right on point. So, but then, okay, now fast forward. Okay, I hit John with the one-liner right there. So in the next match comes up, UFC 4. So I'm, 8-match tournament, 3 matches the same night. So I'm in there for a second match. Big John comes over there and he's going through the same routine. I know what's about to come. He gets to the line. "Are there any questions?" I simply looked at him. I go, "Yes. If you would simply give me the winning lotto ticket numbers, I wouldn't have to do this." And he looks at me dumbfounded, and he's like, he realizes this is the same guy who said that one-liner beforehand. Now, after match, he's talking to his wife. His wife, Elaine, was the travel coordinator for all the different athletes. He's like telling her, "This guy's crazy. He's telling me one-liners just before he's about to fight in the cage." He goes, "He's insane," and stuff like that. Well, they get to know me more and more, realizing that no, I'm a very relaxed individual, very, very relaxed. I mean, I've even had some doctors check my heart rate and stuff like that, and they couldn't believe how low of a pulse I would have in that. But then I know how to calm myself down. I've been in international competitions for so many decades at that point in time. They look at your career of mixed martial arts. Yeah, whoop-de-doo-dah. What, I have 100 matches, 100 plus matches there. I've got probably, I don't know, 3,500, 5,000 or more. Again, I couldn't even begin to tell you how many I have, but if you look at averaging 100 matches or more a year since 1971. I started my career, like I said, in '69, in seventh grade. But by high school, I'm doing my high school season and then doing spring and summer season. So I might be averaging close to 50 matches in season and picking up another probably 100 matches in the off season. So, I mean, I go wouldn't even begin, but I'd say easily 3,500 to 5,000 or more. I'm giving you conservative numbers because, too many people like to embellish the other way. I'll be conservative.
I like that. What would you say is your greatest accomplishment for yourself? Obviously, you have quite the resume. So between these ones, over 100 MMA wins, your black belt accomplishments, or your UFC tournament championships.
Honestly, I mean, if you were, again, I'm here in my training facility. I'm basically in the office portion right now. But if I was out into the main area of my gym, it's the highest room. It's where I have a professional wrestling because I also teach professional wrestling. I have different awards that are up on some shelving and stuff like that. Yeah, because a lot of people ask you what are some of your biggest accomplishments. I go, I'll point to certain awards. And for example, I ended up winning the Pac-10 Student Athlete of the Year award. And I said that's only given to one athlete, and that's between all of these various sports. But it says student athlete. What I like about that award, I'll put it really blunt. I have worked with a lot of dumb jocks. Very few smart athletes. There's a world dominance of dumb jocks with sparkles of intelligent competitors. There's a different mindset to that. As I said earlier, I'm not a fighter. I'm a competitor. Give me the rule sets. I'm competitive in checkers. It's there is, like, in today's society, there is no honor in getting in a fight because the of past time, had you and I had an issue with each other, if we were at the bar, for example, we had an issue with each other, we would have stepped outside, we would have thumped each other a couple times, we would have come back in, had a beer, and that would be the end of the issue. In today's society now, if you get the better of me, I either find a buddy of mine who's bigger and badder, or I go get my gun or something like that, or whatever else I have in my pockets. There really is no honor way it is in today's society. So I try to tell people it's better not to get into a physical altercation because it's too easy to get just caught up in a bunch of just crap. So I was actually closer to get into a real fight probably in the last 30 years of my years than in the first 30 of my years, because I was doing a lot of appearances at sports bars and different clubs and stuff like that. So to the point that I finally learned that, okay, I'm gonna move my timetables up. I will make my appearance earlier in the night, because if I wait till later in the night, some of the patrons have partaken of too many of the barley pops, and now they have their beer goggles on, and then they have some guys come up there and go, "You don't look so tough. I thought you'd be bigger," and stuff like that. And and I use comedy, just kind of diffuse the things, stuff like that. But on a couple occasions, I had to pull out the old ink pen, pull out a business card, write a little phone number onto it, and I slide it over to them. on a table. And I go, what's that? I go, that's the phone number to the Ultimate Fighting Championships. And I go, I have never fought for free. I don't wish to start any bad habits now. I go, but what you're going to like about this is the fact that there is a referee. And he's going to pull me off of you when he thinks you've had enough. I said, there's no referee here, is there? So what is your skill set? And are you willing to test him knowing that this guy has got so many barley pops into him that he doesn't even know if there's one of me, if there's two of me at that point. But I mean, I was kind of at that point sped up. But there's also a couple bouncers that were right there that were ready to take care of my lightweight work there as well. So it's kind of going, it's not that I was trying to call it bluff. It's like going, some people really do need to be put into check. We live in a society, as we stated earlier, because there's no repercussions for your actions. Because even as a student teacher, I remember when I was going in student teaching, I kept thinking, I really have no true authority over these students. Or do I? So I wrote my name up on the chalkboard, Mr. Severn. And this is my first time ever being a substitute teacher, knowing that when you have a sub, what do you do when you have the sub there? It's like a day off. You're not going to do anything. It's like you're going to goof off in class. You get to do nothing. You're going to read basically a couple chapters, and you're going to answer these pages. And for the next 55 minutes of that class, I sit there like a bumper log. So I basically I pulled together a quick game plan. So I had my name, Mr. Severn, up there. So as all the students are coming in, the different students are eyeballing me, and the young bucks, they're looking at each other, they're knuckle bumping, high fiving, because they know they're not going to do nothing today. And so I waited until the bell rang, and then I started to stand up. I go, morning class. My name is, I went to chalkboard, Mr. Severn. If you have a hard time saying Severn, you can simply call me Mr. S or Coach. I've been a coach most of my life. If you want to know more about me, you can simply go to my website then that's my Toronto chalkboard, thebeast.com. And they're like, what is this? And I go, so by second hour, they've got this computer lab. They're like looking this guy up, Dan, Mr. Severn, Dan, the Beast dancer, and they're like going, my God, this guy's a cage fighter. Oh, he's a professional wrestler. Oh, he's an amateur wrestler. I mean, they start fighting by third hour, by lunch, it's all over the place. Then as the day goes, again, this is first day. Towards the later classes I had, one brave soul raises his hand, and he goes, Mr. Severn, you do realize that you are not allowed to lay hands upon us. And I go, au contraire. There will be repercussions if I should lay hands upon you. So rest assured, if I must lay hands upon you, I will make it worth my while. So again, am I bluffing? Oh, I tell people, no, I don't bluff. I don't bluff. I go, if it requires me to lay hands upon you, I will lay hands upon you. Irregardless of who tells me what, I will lay hands upon you because I'm doing the right thing. So even if it's to protect myself or to pull you off of someone else or vice versa. So, but then that's where, but I gained a great deal of respect from the students because, the lesson plan was read this chapter and then answer questions. No, I basically would go right on the classroom. You read the first paragraph. Person behind you reads the second paragraph on all the way around. And I found out real quick who can read, who can't read. And you'd be surprised in our high school how many students cannot read. And where I would say, hey, George, or hey, Frank, and I'd say one or two of the guys, typically it was the males. And I'd say, come and see me after class. And they thought they were in trouble, but I would be like, I'd be telling them, you need to learn how to read. It will open up the world to you, learning how to read. I go, I know it's kind of embarrassing. You're a guy and you think you're all macho and stuff like this, but you need help to read. I can put you in contact with your English teacher, and they can do some additional tutoring. So I've helped out a lot of students that way, but I did it not in front of all the rest of their student body and stuff like that, so that it was just a one-on-one. But the other thing is, I would have all the answers back here so that when these questions come up, I had the answer key. So like when a question, like if I was doing a history class and a question comes up like, who was the first president of the United States? And the correct answer is George Washington. But so a student would say George Washington. I say no, it's not. It would be Abraham Lincoln. I gave them the wrong answer, and now the students, they all got quiet, and they're looking at each other, but no one's willing to say anything. I go, what's the matter, students? You look like something is not right. Well, again, one brave soul kind of raises their hand again, and they're like, well, Mr. Severn, that's not the correct answer. I go, what is the correct answer? Well, it's Abraham Lincoln. I go, can you elaborate a little bit more about it? And he goes, well, yeah, he was the 16th president, and George Washington was the first president. And I'm like, well, guess what? You are correct. I go, it's okay to disagree with an adult or an authoritative type figure. Do it with knowledge, do it with facts, figures, things of that nature. Because of your young ages, you do it the wrong way. You simply go, oh, you're wrong because you're dumb and ugly, which makes no sense here right now. I go, you got to do it on a more intellectual type basis. So they knew from that point on, they loved having me because I'm going to be throwing them curveballs left, right. Sometimes I'm going to hit them with the wrong answer. Sometimes I'm hit them with the right answer because it is the first time in their world that they're actually using their brain. But I had some wonderful teachers, and that had other people that should have never been a teacher at all. They should have been working in a mortuary, which means they're working with dead people because there's no one to be bothered by them. But that's where I learned, and that's where I wanted to move in the world of teaching, and I've actually been teaching ever since.
And we're glad that you have, based on the stories you just told. That was amazing. What would you say, with regards to your UFC Hall of Fame induction? How did that make you feel, just about your career and actually being, acknowledged for that great accomplishment?
Well, I mean, it's Matthew. I'm in. I'll say conservatively, I think 20 or 25 Hall of Fames now. My very first one, I was inducted into Arizona State Hall of Fame in 1984, and I was still competing. And I kept thinking, aren't you supposed to be like retired from your sport before you get? I mean, because I was questioning them that they wanted, but I had done a lot of things that no one had ever achieved in college. But so they still wanted to induct me, but I questioned why I was being inducted at such a young age. And like I said, I'm in, again, I don't know, 25, maybe 30 plus Hall of Fames. I just got inducted to just another one just a couple of weeks ago. I didn't even know about it. It was the greater Flint, Michigan area athletes. And I mean, rightfully, should I be there? Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at what I've done in athletics, not just for just a short stint, but for what I've continued. When you look at someone that started the career in 1969, and I was teaching it by my freshman, from my freshman to my sophomore year, so that later on that 1971 time period, I started teaching it. By 1972, I won my first national title. So I always tell people I started my career at 69. By 71, I'm teaching it. By 72, I win my first national title. By 1976, I'm the number one amateur wrestler at my weight class inside the United States, being recruited by any collegiate program worth their weight in salt. They wanted me. And so that was 1976. I always say, well, just jump 2 decades later. By 1996, I'm the number one cage fighter in the world. Well, what's he been doing over the last 2 decades? Oh, racking up probably several thousand matches between folk style, freestyle, Greco, but then also the term mixed martial artist. The term mixed martial artist did not come until somewhere in the, I'll say the early 2000s, maybe around that 2005, 6, 7 time period, did the term mixed martial artist really come in. But I was a mixed martial artist in high school because I went from being folk style, where the only country that does folk style, the rest of the world does freestyle and Greco. By my freshman year, I jumped into freestyle. By my sophomore year, I jumped to Greco. I kept doing that all along, to where on any Friday, Saturday, Sunday, within 5 to 7 different states, my older brother Dave and I, we would be driving somewhere. We'd be doing something on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And so I'm wrestling 3 different locations, getting 3 different tournaments in. So over the course of 1 weekend, I might get maybe a dozen to 20 some odd matches in one weekend. And so it's just like, so with that type of seasoning, am I really a freshman? Am I really a sophomore? Am I a junior? Am I a senior? Or am I someone on a collegiate level still inside of high school just on sheer experience alone and learning to read? So I made that comment earlier about telling a student you need to learn how to read because it will open up the world to you. My freshman year in high school, my high school wrestling coach was also the government teacher, history teacher and government teacher. And one day I went up to his desk to drop off a paper. And on his desk, I saw this stack of magazines. And the magazine, it was entitled Amateur Wrestling News. And I'd never seen this magazine before. I'm like, Coach, I go, do you care if I look at one of these magazines? He goes, sure. He says, you can look at them. He goes, just bring it back up on my desk. So now when I grabbed this magazine and I start thumbing through it, and it talked about all these various wrestlers, where they're at, stuff like that. But this magazine had wrestling techniques. It talked about techniques. It talked about the psychological aspect of the sport. It talked about diet, nutrition. It talked about different wrestling camps that were coming up. But it talked about setting goals. It talked about cardiovascular programs, weightlifting programs. I mean, there was, up to that point, I was doing the sport and just doing whatever the coach told me. And so I'm thinking, this coach has got to work with, 35, 45 other athletes other than just myself. I go, I know me better than what he'll probably ever know me. So I just started outlining what I thought I needed to work on. I set my freshman year in high school, I set my very first goal in wrestling, and that goal was I wanted to be the first freshman ever to make the varsity team, because no freshman had ever done that before, and that was my first goal.
That's a great way to put that. Lastly here, before I ask, we do like a between round segment, so some more personal stuff. Just talk about your family and if how many kids you have, and just life as it is today for you.
Well, I'll just say that the hardest part about what I've done was being like an absentee parent, because I have missed. I work on weekends, is how I put it to people. During the work week, I mean, I work for myself. I mean, that's not why I'm here in Coldwater. I actually, at the time, I had a home in Owasso, Michigan, and I was making the commute back and forth between Owasso, Michigan, and East Lansing, where I was working at Michigan State University. And that was, I would have, if you actually saw the history of wrestling coaches, they only change coaches about every 20 to 30 years. So the reality is I would have been there for a long time had things gone the way that they should have gone for me. But because the head coach was into so many different things, let's use the word illegal things, and that I did not want that association with, because you would just be guilty by association with that. So I would just say that the proverbial shit did hit the fan, and he did end up going to prison. And yours truly got a letter of recommendation, but I left the program prematurely because I didn't want to be associated with the program anymore. So I ended up leaving it. But I guess getting back to what really your original question, the hard part was that when I took a job down here in Coldwater, I was using my degree in industrial arts. Part of my industrial arts background, I was working towards a master's of education with the field of specialization. My field of specialization was manufacturing. So the previous job I was working at, it was a tool and die stamping forging plant, to where, think of Dan Severn as wearing a doctor smock, safety goggles, and I'm out there with instrumentation like micrometers and things of this nature, checking parts to make certain that they could be as close to tolerance as plus or minus 10 thousandths of an inch. You can't see that. You actually have to put that on instrumentation and run a computer program. So to make sure that parts are good or bad. So I was working in the quality control department. And when I came, the gentleman who hired me there went on to bigger, better things down in Coldwater, Michigan. Now he's offering me more money. He's offering me all the bells, buzzers, and whistles that a young married man with a young family would want to hear. And I'm like, well, how much time do I have? 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, Matthew, in 2 weeks, I sold a home. I bought a home. I went to work. And at the end of the first week, I did not have a job. I bought a bigger home based upon this salary in the whole 9 yards. And I was in a really bad predicament where I had to make some hard decisions. So I jumped quickly into professional wrestling. Tough man contest, stuff like that came on up. I started going to Japan. I was working for this strong style company known as the UWFI. And then, lo and behold, by 1994, the Ultimate Fighting Championships came into effect. And I jumped into that. It was kind of like I jumped into the water with no life preserver because there was no retreat. I had to make it work. That's what it was. I had to make it work. So again, there's a lot of things that people don't know about me that I will. I've got one book out already. I'll write probably 2 to 3 more books, each one having a purpose behind it. And it's something that I continue that I hold athletes accountable at my training facility. I motivate people. And I will become more and more of a motivational speaker because it's I tell them my own story, but at the same token, I could have laid down, start crying, and could have had a pity party. But what's that going to do for me? It's not going to do nothing. You gotta, you get knocked down. You gotta pick yourself back up, dust yourself on off, and go. Is that the best you got? Let's go. Let's go again.
Well put. Our last segment's between rounds. I'm going to ask you a question. There'll be a couple answers you can give us, okay?
Okay.
What's your favorite kind of food to eat?
Well, I mean, I'll go with pizza, but I'm like a human garbage disposal. I will eat almost anything and everything, and that really shows it because I've traveled to a lot of international countries knowing that I don't have a clue what is on my plate. But I look around, I see them all eating it. I'm thinking, well, didn't kill them. I doubt if it's going to kill me. Bon appetit.
Excluding any discipline within mixed martial arts, what would be your favorite sport?
Oh, still my favorite sport is amateur wrestling. Hands down. Well, let me take that back. Football. I love football, and I got to give you the rationale. I played football all 4 years in high school. Upon high school graduation, I had a lot of collegiate offers to play football. I turned it down to isolate on wrestling because our high school football team should have done a lot better than what it did. And I know that I did everything within my power. But if someone else got lazy and missed a block, missed a tackle, and we lose, it sucked. So I had to rely upon 10 other players on that field. So wrestling is an individual sport, So I chose that the team can lose and I can still win. So I chose wrestling over football. And even at Arizona State, the head football coach at the time was a guy by the name of Frank Cush. And he used to come and watch the home wrestling duel matches. And then he would corner me afterwards. He's like, Severn, you're an animal. I see linebacker written all over your face. I go, Coach, you've got me pegged. I would tear my heart out and give it to you. I go, but do you have 10 other players that are willing to do that? I don't think so. I said, that's why. I said, I loved it in high school. I'm a kamikaze. Hey, Matthew, have you ever watched the movie Rudy?
Oh, of course.
I mean, it's probably 25 years or so ago. But yeah, I'm in that movie. Rudy.
I know. I read that. I saw that.
but I had also Professor Wrestler Al Snow and a number of other professional wrestlers, because once a buddy of mine that was a wrestling coach worked at a local college, also in the sport of football. He's the one that they couldn't use current NCAA players because of the NCAA rules. So they were just looking for big, goony guys. Well, I fit the role as a big, goony guy, and I just put on a football helmet, shoulders, and pads, and got to play in the movie. But it was actually the most fun when we were actually doing live hitting. So again, I kind of digressed, went off to something else, but
that's okay. That's okay.
So go ahead. Keep the action going here.
What's your favorite getaway spot in Michigan? If somebody hasn't been there before, a spot that you would tell them to go to, it's a must-see.
Oh, a must-see? Oh, a must-see. A must-see in Michigan right now. Well, Michigan's watch winter under. Well, again, to me, I think if you in between the Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula is the Mackinac Bridge. At the time, I think it held one of the records. I mean, it's no longer there for being one of the longest suspension bridges. But there's also, you can go to Mackinac Island. That was probably one of the first times I ever was on a ferry boat. Go over to Mackinac Island. They don't allow any automobiles. It's all on bicycles. There is actually one automobile. It's an ambulance. It's the only vehicle that's allowed on the entire island. Big mansion of a hotel that's there. I would say that if you could go up between Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula, there's to see the Mackinac Bridge, Mackinac Island. That's something that you should see. But I mean, as a much more patriotic answer, every American should go to Washington D.C. They should go and see the White House. They should take a tour. They should go and see the Statue of Liberty. They should go and see Ellis Island, where all the it's all my kids have been there, and I've had to take them all at different types of stages. To my oldest son, he was so young, but he was at the McDonald's, and I'm like, so I swung through a McDonald's drive-thru. I got him his kids' meal, something like that, and we were sitting in front of the White House. So when you go back to school, you tell all your friends that you had breakfast at the White House.
What's your favorite country in the world other than the USA?
Hungary. Actually, I still don't know why that just popped in my head, but going to Budapest, Hungary, it was beautiful. Not really down in the city, because the city is, a city life is city life, but up in the mountains. I just remember being on that trip, and what beautiful places. But Budapest, Hungary, up in the mountain terrain was really beautiful. I've been to a lot of beautiful countries, so I mean, literally one of my very first international trips ever was, I think I was still, a junior in high school. I took one of my first international trips into Canada.
There we go. We'll get that in there. What's your favorite kind of music?
I'm an old rock and roller, but a lot of it depends on music. It depends on what am I doing. If I'm in the gym, I want a heavier, stronger beat type of music, because it's keeping you amped up. It's keeping you going. And it's the same thing if I'm running a class while I'm instructing, I don't allow music. But once we're doing live randori, we're going stuff like this, I don't mind putting on music. But if they put on rap, I will squash it. Not that I'm not a fan of rap. I'm not a fan of just gregarious cussing. I don't want people just going F-bomb after F-bomb after F-bomb. I go, no, I take pride. I go, even like all my athletes that come in there, I tell them that they have to wear a t-shirt and athletic shorts at all times, but I don't want no graphics of vulgarity, beer, or nudity on the shirts, because it's kind of like when I go, you are a representation of me and my product. If you go out there and get in trouble with stuff like this, I don't want I'd rather have the authorities tell me about it, and I will take care of you in my class. It's called practice, but you might be surprised how physical practice will be upon you because you did wrong. But that again, that's old school. There would be a time when if you got in trouble at school, not only did you get get your swats by the principal or by that teacher, but by the time you got back home, you got swats by your parents. But then every other neighbor who found out about it, you might get a few more swats by those neighbors as well. And that cliche used to be, it takes how does that go? Sometimes it takes to raise a child. It takes a lot of people to raise a child, but it's I forget right now. It'll pop in my head later.
I know what you're saying. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Rocky. Now, it was the very first Rocky movie, because there's been so many Rocky movies. But the very first one, again, the only reason that pops up, there might be some other ones, but what I like about that from an athletic perspective is that in that movie Rocky, he knows he can't beat the champ, but his only goal was he wants to, but no one has ever gone the distance with the champ. So all he wanted to do is he wanted to know that he went the full distance when that final bell rings and he's still standing there. He knows he is somebody at that point in time. So he set his goal, and his goal was simply just to go the distance with the champ. And that's where a lot of people may not understand that. See, to me, I understand that as a competitor, as a coach, as setting goals and then achieving those goals. I mean, that was, even as I think about that right now, I can feel the emotions rising in me. And that's one of those things. It's like a lot of people can't, it's hard for them to conjure up a competitive spirit. Because I always say that when it comes into matches, whether it be amateur wrestling, things of nature, things aren't going to go right for you. And the sport of amateur wrestling is very physical. It's very physical. It's very psychological. And there comes a point in time where mentally, well, no, you are physically imposing your will upon it. So I always say that you're physically breaking somebody, and you're mentally breaking them, because as you get them tired, that's when their mind starts to think, "Oh my God, I'm getting tired. He's still coming after me." Now you start getting these fleeting negative type thoughts start coming into your mind. But it's the same way. I was always good about taking my opponents down, putting them down on the mat, and breaking their spirit, breaking their will. Wrestling is a sport of leverage. Another word for leverage is legalized pain. And I was good at legalized pain. I was good at breaking people and keeping them underneath the thumb screws to where I owned them. I mean, it was, I was a machine. In a lot of ways, I was a machine, but at the same token, I've been a machine for decades, because, going through these timetables, I've got people right now that they are accusing me that it can no longer be Dan Severn. It's got to be Dan Severn Jr., because I've been around so long that there's no way it could be the same cat. So I think we just went off the air, but I don't know there, Matthew.
Yeah, that's okay. So let's finish with
right.
who you think are the best mixed martial artists of all time. Just name a few in your opinion.
I mean, well, again, I'm gonna go after a couple different timetables right there, because I mean, George St. Pierre. Now, I'm not just saying it because he's a Canadian, and then I'm talking to a Canadian. I like George St. Pierre because he conducted himself in a much more professional manner. And the fact is, he was not a wrestler. He actually started working out with the rest of the team, but he got so proficient that he could have made the Canadian Olympic team. So I just like the fact, again, I like the way that he carried himself. Now, I know there is some element to trash talk, but there's I don't like it when these guys are just like dropping F-bombs back and forth. I mean, there's to me, there's no class when you're doing those type of aspects. I always use more or less the psychological aspects, and when people, whenever there'd be like a mediator or an interviewer, they're like, "Well, Dan, Tank Abbott said this about you, or Ken Shamrock said that about you, or Mark Coleman says this about you." I mean, they're just trying to stir the pot to see if they get a rise out of you or something like that. And when there was rounds, I'll say something like, "Well, he's got 5 rounds, 5 minutes each round. He's got 25 minutes to make his point." I said, and guess what? I will be there, and I don't think he's going to get things done. I think that yours truly has got the proven record, and I'll get things done much quicker than what he will ever get them done. So I would never get caught up in that.
Yeah. To finish up, do you have any sponsors, shout outs, or social media that you wanted to?
The only thing that I will really put right now is that my website at Dan Severn Severn is spelled S-E-V like Victor, E-R-N like Nancy, Dan. Severn.com. That website is under construction right now. And I actually have another one that should be launched here shortly. I think that everything is going to be running through, and that is kingofthebeast.com. So the ring name, The Beast, I did not make up. It was given to me by a legendary NFL Hall of Famer, Jim Brown. He was one of the play-by-play commentators. And in his words, he said that, Danny goes, when I first met you, I did not think that much of you. He said, you were the only guy that showed up wearing a sports jacket and a tie. Literally everybody thought that, because I had Al Snow there with me, and all the various competitors, they were wearing like tank tops, muscle shirts, tattoos, piercings, things of that nature. I don't have tattoo one, I don't have piercing one, but I wore a sports jacket and tie because I worked for Arizona State and Michigan State, and proper protocol when you showed up someplace was sports jacket and tie. So I showed up like that. Everyone thought I was the agent for Al Snow, and that Al Snow was me. So when it was time to go up to the press conference, I was sitting up there, and Al Snow was out in the crowd. So I use the word press conference because there was not a weigh-in, and that's what a lot of your viewing audience or listening audience should appreciate. Back then, there was a press conference. There were 8 men, and so basically the mediator would be simply stand up there, and they go, participant number 1, Ken Shamrock, please stand on up. Ken Shamrock would stand up. Okay, Ken Shamrock. Then he just had a script, and the mediator would say, Ken Shamrock, he hails from this city, this state. He stands 6'1". He weighs this much weight. His martial art is this, and basically would say a few other tidbits, and that was it. And go, please sit down. Okay, contestant number 2, Hoist Gracie, and then can go through again. Height, weight, where they come from, what the martial art is. So they would go to the 8 individuals, and then they would pull out a bingo ball machine. There would be 8 balls, and each ball had a name on it. So as they have a couple people, they'd be spinning the machine around. First ball would come out, and there it might be Ken Shamrock. Okay, so up on the 8-man bracket, Ken Shamrock's name would be written up. Okay, in the number 1 spot. Okay, to spin it again. Okay, ball number 2. There's Cal Worsham. Okay, so Cal Worsham, he's number 2. So the Friday night at the press conference will be the first time that you find out who are you fighting. How many of these young athletes today, with less than 24 hours notice, would be willing to do a blind draw like that?
There's very few.
I don't think you're going to find any myself, but because they're so used to they've got to go in this training camp for 4 months, 5 months. I think some of these guys are going to these training camps for 6 to 8 months because they just don't compete that many times on an annual basis. So it's and then to know that that's your first match. Okay, if you just met the other 7 guys for the first time that night, they pull out the bingo ball machine. You finally find out your first guy. You're trying to find. You can't Google anybody's name because it did not exist. The full contact fighter, the Sure Dog, all these websites did not exist at that time. Now you can find out anybody and what was their amateur career, what is their pro career. Where I can study some video clips. I can see them in some different interviews. It's remarkable what you can find out today, but those were not luxuries at that time. So literally, as they're doing the announcements, that's when I found out, okay, he's got a Muay Thai background. Better watch out for some knees, elbows, kicks, punches, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. He'll probably be weak in his grappling ability. Okay, you go up with someone else and you find out, okay, he's got a jiu-jitsu background. Okay, he's going to have more submissions, but his takedowns probably are not going to be that good. So, I mean, just certain things you come up with seconds before you're about to compete against them.
Yeah, it's incredible. Dan Severn, really happy to have you on today. I'm so happy that we were able to work this out. And, you know, some of the stories you've told today, just in the time we've had, you know, will resonate. And I know that I'm going to remember a few of them, even with my teaching. So thank you so much.
There will be, I will go down in history books. Again, I always tell people I'm a teacher to begin with. And when you look at all the various things that I have done and for how many decades I have been doing it, and you can still have an intellectual conversation with me. As I said before, my ears are not beaten up. I don't have cauliflower ears. I don't have a broken nose. My teeth, although crooked, they've always been crooked. they're still originals. I told myself, well, I said I might go and have my nose fixed finally because I've had a deviated septum my entire life. But I kept thinking, I won't do it while I'm doing it on this competition because people always thought I was breathing really hard. It's because I'm a mouth breather because my nose is I can hardly breathe out my nose, but that's been something because I've had a deviated septum for pretty much most of my entire life. But as more and more people get to learn more about me, they're going to realize what a more of a phenomenal individual that I came from. As I said before, I'm not a fighter, but I am a competitor. And even as I go into the twilight of my career, not as a competitor, but more as this inspiration, this motivational speaker, coach, because I do work with law enforcement, corrections, air marshal, border patrol, military. They all have some sort of a ground combatives component, and I've worked with all of them at different times to help develop their programs. I continue to teach programs for them, and I continue to try to make things easier for the non-athlete to be able to do things. But as I said before, we live in a very strange world where they're trying to neuter all males, and that's not going to go over too well.
Well, from one competitor to another, I respect you for being that and everything you've done in your career, and we really appreciate you coming on today. Dan the Beast Severn.
Thank you, Matthew.
This was a pleasure, and this is Hooks in MMA. Thanks so much.
Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, yeah.